Well, in that reading that we had from Hebrews chapter 11, as I said, it comes at the end of that wonderful chapter about the heroes of faith. And the writer says, what more can I say? I don't have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, the prophets, and all the rest of them. But who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, to shut the mouths of lions. It's a fascinating read. And when we look back into the Old Testament and read their stories of these different people, they were pioneers. They were going out in faith, trusting that God was going to be with them wherever they went, whatever they did. In the Message paraphrase or translation of the Bible, the New Testament especially, this is what it says there in there. Do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on, it means we'd better get on with it. Strip down, start running, and never quit. No extra spiritual fat. No parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished the race that we're in. Study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed. That exhilarating finish in and with anything along the way. The cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there, in the place of honour, at the right hand, alongside God. Pioneers. Many of them we don't know anything about them. Many of them, they're unknown. But pioneers are those that walk up a path where there's no footprints. They're willing to take risks. And they're not just those who explore. When you think of the scientists, the wonderful medicines that have been found by pioneers in science, all the inventions that we've got, how many cars are outside? Think back 100 years or more now, to the first ones who thought about making a car. Think of Henry Ford, building the first mass production car. When you think of the ones that we've got now, the different makes that we've got. But they all started by one or two people who were pioneers all that time ago. Well, about 200 years ago, in a small village in Northamptonshire, Hollisbury, and this, I believe, is mentioned in the Doomsday Book. I've not had a look, but I'm reliably informed that that is true. On the 17th of August, 1761, the baby was born, called William Carey. So as I said, this year we celebrate 250 years of that event. His father was a teacher, so he did get some basic education of what we would think today. And they went to the Anglican Church. I've lost the page. Very different. But as he grew up, as a young man, as a teenager, he was self-educated. He became a shoemaker. And he went to the Anglican Church, but when he was training as a young man, as a shoemaker, as a cobbler, there was another young man there who was a dissenter. And these were Christians who separated from the Church of England, from the state church in the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries, because they opposed state interference in religious matters. And they founded their own churches, their own educational establishments and communities. Some of them emigrated to the New World, to America. And through his conversations with this young man, Carey was converted and became a dissenter. He was baptised in 1783, preached in different churches, and at a young age became a pastor of a Baptist fellowship. And it was during a meeting of the ministers of that area in 1792 that he hears this fellow, I've got now particular minister, it should be particular Baptist ministers, that they should support foreign enterprise. But one of the great forefathers, the Reverend John Ryland, who have an inkling, looking on the internet, Ryland's library in Manchester is named after him. I think it's the same one. But he told Carey, sit down, young man. If God wants to convert the heathen, he'll do it without consulting you or me. That was the thought of those. He didn't go out and evangelise. He didn't go and so on. But later on, at another meeting, in 1792, he preached a sermon called the Deathless Sermon. And this was at a meeting of the ministers again. And he gave one of the most challenging quotes that we have. He said, expect great things from God, attempt great things from God. And this so moved the hearers that they founded virtually there and then, the Baptist Missionary Society in 1792. Then later on, Carey, after a lot of hassle and worry and prayer, sailed for India with another man, John Thomas. He got married at the age of 19 to a young lady called Dorothy, who was illiterate, from what the history books tell us. She didn't want to go. And it took time for her to be persuaded to actually go. And when you think about the journey that they went, in a moment or two, you'll just see a picture of a map. And it'll show you where the route he went. Right down the African coast, round Cape of Good Hope, round and across the Indian Ocean to get to India. I dread to think what it must have been like. It must have taken months. Because I look back 50 odd years, I know funny faces are going to be full in front of me. But 50 odd years ago, I was on a troop ship. We sailed down the Med to the Suez Canal, through the Suez Canal, in the Red Sea, then into the Indian Ocean, called at Colombo in Ceylon. When we got off the boat, it was lovely. I think we had 6 hours from memory. We got back on again, and we sailed the rest of the way to Singapore. It took us 3 weeks. The Bay of Biscay, which is supposed to be rough, was smooth when we went. But the Indian Ocean, that wasn't. So what this journey, which had taken months for Carey and the others on that ship, I mean, the East India Company didn't want them to go. They didn't want missionaries in India because they've got their businesses going on there. So they didn't want them going. And they actually told one of the captains of the ship that if he took them, he'd be out of a job and lose his ship. But in the end, they were able to go and they sailed. And he moved when they got there to the northeast of the country, to Serampore, which is near Calcutta. I'm going to show you that video. It takes about 8 to 9 minutes, but it's worth seeing. That is actually a picture, a drawing of the house where Carey lived in Northamptonshire.
In 17 1793, the world was changing quickly. In France, Louis XVI was executed as the revolution gathered pace. In Italy, Niccolò Paganini, aged 11, began to play the violin in public. In England, King George III was on the throne, and Pitt the Younger was Prime Minister. And in June 1793, a Danish ship, under a captain called Christmas, sailed from England, bound for India. On board was a 31-year-old Baptist minister and former cobbler who had never left these shores before, accompanied by his wife, her sister, and their 4 young children. William Carey was on his way to changing the world. He and a surgeon named John Thomas, Mr. T, were the first English nonconformists to go to India with the sole purpose of evangelizing the national population. It was a voyage from which he would never return. Carey kept a journal, which he intended to send back to the newly formed Baptist Missionary Society. This is the early part of that story, in his own words.
Thursday, the 13th of June, 1793. We embarked by divine providence in the Crown Princess Maria, a Danish ship commanded by Captain Christmas, an Englishman, at 5 in the morning from Dover, and by night were off Beachy Head. This, I hope, was a day of joy to my soul. I was returned to take all of my family with me and to enjoy all the blessings which I had surrendered up to God. Sunday, 23rd of July, 1793. Last night passed the Tropic of Capricorn. Sometimes I am quite dejected when I see the impenetrability of the hearts of those with us. They hear us preach on the Lord's Day, but we are forced to witness their disregard to God all the week. Oh God, may God give us greater strength among the heathen.
The long journey was exhausting. Carey describes huge swells in the sea causing sickness for him and others, while gales caused the boat to make slow progress, even once they were close to land.
Saturday, 9th of November, 1793. For near a month we have been within 200 miles of Bengal, but the violence of the current set us back when we had been at the very door. Today was the first time of an interview with the Hindus. I like their appearance very much. They appear to be intelligent persons. On Monday we intend, God willing, to go. Oh, may my heart be prepared for our work, and the kingdom of Christ set up among the poor Hindus.
The early days in India were ones in which Carey often felt that money issues and other material needs overwhelmed his sense of godly purpose. He describes his intent to go out from the city and live among the ordinary people, but it was a constant struggle, and there was illness to overcome too.
Monday, 13th of January, 1794. My family has been much afflicted with the flu. My wife and sister too, who do not see the importance of the mission as I do, and are continually exclaiming against me. And as for Mr. Thomas, they think it very hard indeed that he should live in a city, in an affluent mansion, and they be forced to go into a wilderness and live without what they call the necessities of life, bread in particular. But I not only am convinced of the impossibility of living in Calcutta, but also of the importance of a missionary being like and living among his people. The success of future missions also lies near my heart, and I am fearful. But the great expense of sending out my family should be a check upon the zeal of the Society. Wednesday, 15th of January, 1794. On the first of these days I received an account that I may have as much land as I please for 3 years for nothing, and after that to pay a small rent per annum. I therefore went to Mr. T to consult him and to obtain money, when I found that all was expended and that Mr. T was already in debt. I was much dejected at this. I am in a strange land, alone, no Christian friend, a large family, and nothing to supply their wants. I blame Mr. T for leading me into such an expense at first, and I blame myself for being led. I am dejected not for my own sake, but for my family's, and for his, for whom I tremble.
However, in some respects things were looking up. Carey's ability to read and write Bengali was rapidly improving, to the extent that his Bible translation ambitions were about to begin to be fulfilled.
Tuesday, 21st of January 1794.